if you are working hard every day and you're working super hard on your business during the weekends and your business is still not growing, you're working on the wrong things. And I think it's such a brilliant observation because oftentimes you spend months, years trying to solve a problem only to realize that really that wasn't the problem that needed solving.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. My next guest, Andrei Mincov, talks about something that people often forget about, but is so necessary to protect your business, your brand. Even my podcast has a registered trademark. So Andrei, thank you for being here. I love the name Trademark Factory. It makes it very clear what you do.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here with you and your audience.
Fantastic. And we were just discussing that you are all the way around the world from where I am, which is part of the beauty of podcasting, is that you really can meet people from all over. And I imagine that you can do your line of business from anywhere as well.
Yeah, well, we're a global company. Basically, we have our teams scattered around the globe. We have people in North America, we have people in Asia, we have people in Europe. And as a whole, we give business owners what they want in terms of protecting their brands.
Yeah. Well, let's dive right into that. What was your journey like to realize that you were so passionate about helping people protect their IP?
It all started back when I was still living in Russia and attending my Russian law school. My father was a famous composer there. He wrote music for a crazy amount of movies, and one day he caught a radio station that took one of his songs that I used to sing with him on stage when I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Like, he'd take me up on the concert. Like he'd do the concert. He'd call me in for the last 3 or 4 songs and I'd get all the flowers and all the candies, right? So there's one of those songs. He caught the radio station that took one of those songs and turned that into a commercial for Samsung without his permission. And he called the radio station and said, "You guys can't take my music and use it as you please." And they told him to sit down, shut up, and be grateful that they were making him more famous. And if you knew my dad, you'd know right away it was a wrong thing to say to him. Like, yeah, out of all things they could have picked to say, that was the one they shouldn't have. So he said, "Okay, great. I'll see you in court." He slams down the phone and she's fuming, right? And this was 1996 when Russia has just transitioned from the socialist copyright laws, which basically said that the government owned everything, to free market copyright laws, which are more or less similar to what the rest of the world has now. And the problem is, in 1996, there were no lawyers who had any experience with the new system, right? And I was attending the law school. And in Russia, you don't need to have an attorney license to represent clients in civil court. So unless it's a criminal court, there you do need a license. There I could do that. And so he came to me and said, can you help me with this? And I'm like, as long as you don't mind me knowing absolutely nothing about intellectual property, and as long as you want me to fly this plane as I build it, to build this plane as I fly it. That's what I was going to say. As long as you're okay with that, let's do it. And that's exactly what we did. So I took them to court. I had my hair like down my elbows back in the day. I was like basically a rock star. Never owned a suit until 9 years into my legal practice. Wow. So I show up in court and I say my thing and they ask for an adjournment. Next time I have 4 lawyers facing me on the other side. Whoa. It was lots of fun. But long story short, I had to take this case all the way up to the second highest court in the nation because they bought the first judge. It was Russia 1996, right? So we had to take this all the way up where I won. And in the process of these 2 years fighting this, I got so passionate about helping people who create something like that everyone wants to listen to it, everyone wants to use it, and it wouldn't have existed if not for those people. So the least thing we can do for them is not to steal from them. And I also saw what it does to people when their IP is being stolen, because it's very personal, right? You feel violated when that happens, and it's not something you can put a lock, right? It's intangible. So the only way to protect yourself is by taking the legal route. And so I always say, my dad was my first and favorite client, but really that's what it is. So before I left Russia in 2007, there had not been a single federal TV station that I didn't sue successfully over my dad's copyright.
Oh my gosh.
Every single one of them. But the funny thing is, they only have to go through this once. Once we won, next time I just had to pick up the phone and say, "We got you again. I got the tape." And we just found the amicable solution moving from there. Yeah, so that's really how it all came from my dad. And then in 2007, like I said, I had enough of Russia. I moved to Canada and I had to go to my second law school because they wouldn't give any recognition to my 13 years of career in Russia, including 4 years with the largest international law firm, Baker & McKenzie, where I did work for Apple, Microsoft, DreamWorks, like all those big names you can think of. Canada said, don't care. So I did 3 more years in Canada in law school, got my license there, and started this business. It's funny because when I started my Canadian law school, I said to myself, look, Andrei, that's a perfect opportunity for you to find out if you actually love IP because, because of something other than your dad, right? You're stuck for 3 years. You can learn anything. And I realized that for whatever reason, the only other course that had some interest to me was insurance law. But, everything else, I was like, it really wasn't clicking. And honestly, I don't want to do insurance law. So, but every time there was a topic about IP, I was like, my eyes would light up and I'm like, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm passionate about. And once I got my Canadian license and started my business, I started my business out of necessity. It's the classical Michael Gerber story, which, by the way, Michael Gerber is one of our clients. We're doing a few of his trademarks. But when, I sent out my resumes across Canada saying, here I am, welcome me. I came to Canada. I'm ready for you. And I got the grand total of 0 offers. And that was really frustrating, really painful. And that's when I discovered Rob Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'm sitting there sulking, trying to figure out how come I didn't get all those invitations and offers. And I'm like, what, maybe I should start my own business, my own firm. And so I started my own law firm, and very quickly I realized that something was missing: clients.
Oh,
everything was perfect about that firm, except there were no clients. And so based on that, I started learning marketing, sales, and basically how you run a business of law, how you find clients, what you give them. And that's how I came up with this idea of Trademark Factory, which is basically how to help business owners in North America protect our brands in a way that is predictable, that is fair, and that's transparent.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the long and short.
Those are all really important things. And I love the fact that we often start businesses because we're very passionate about something, but then you have to learn all of the skills that actually go into owning a business, including the marketing, the sales, getting your client. But there's so many things that you touched on that I've seen play out in my own life. My family is from Asia on my mom's side. And same thing, when some family members came over, it didn't matter what their credentials were. They had to start over. And that is something I think needs to be changed. But that's a whole other topic. That could be a whole other podcast, because you had this level of expertise. So yes, you certainly gained a little more from how the Canadian system operated, right? But the fact that you had to go through and repeat everything after you had all of this experience, I find mind-boggling.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, that's what the system is. I mean, I can sulk all I want about this, but
Yeah.
really, I only got one life, and it's my responsibility to make the best out of it, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah. I've spoken to people before who maybe had a different take on trademarks of helping people who were tattoo artists, right? Or musicians, your dad, for instance. There are so many things that are available for us to protect as our IP. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times people don't realize the breadth and depth of what you can protect. So can you walk us through that a little bit? Do you have an interest, like what's the most interesting thing that you've had to create a trademark for other than working with your father and helping him protect all of his?
All right. Based on your question, I want to clear a misconception that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
So there are different types of IP. IP, intellectual property, is just an umbrella term that covers several completely separate types of law and completely separate types of assets. So the three main ones are copyright, patents, and trademarks. And you can't really say, hey, I own my intellectual property. When you say I own my intellectual property, the person hearing this knows right away you have no idea what you're talking about. So it's important to understand the difference. So copyright, let's start there. This is really where I started with my dad, covers content, right? It's music, videos, images, websites, software, stuff that is protected for how you express your idea. It doesn't protect the actual idea behind it, the underlying idea. It protects the words, protects the actual image or the actual video. And that's something you can protect with copyright. It's called original works. The second bucket is patent law, which is as closer as you're going to get to protecting the essence, the idea, the invention, right? And you can protect new products or new methods of how you make certain things. And again, with patents is as close as you're going to get to protecting the what, that brilliant spark of yours. And trademarks, the magic word for trademarks is which, right? Trademarks is something that allows the market to identify your products and services apart from the same or similar product and services of everyone else. So if you go to the store and you walk down the aisle and you see a shelf with toothpaste, right? Really, it's the same glop in different tubes. The only difference is whatever is written on it, right? The name, the logos that you see, the taglines, and that's what really trademarks are for. Or ketchup is another great example, right? Heinz, and there's not Heinz, right? Basically. And that's exactly the function of a trademark. The function of a trademark is not to protect the formula for the ketchup or the toothpaste. It's not to protect the recipe. It's not protect the marketing materials, right? It's protect the brand. It's what people have in mind when they leave the store and come back, right? And, going back to toothpaste, how often do you change your toothpaste brand?
Not very.
Never, right? And we always refer to it as my toothpaste, right? And that's what branding does. That's the power of the brand. And, the name of your podcast, and I had this, shirt made specifically for it because I thought it'd be fun. So,
yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's very helpful. But I also know that you can have a trademark in one country, but not necessarily in other countries.
Yep.
When is it important to think about having a more global trademark versus US based? Or
so that's a great question. So, okay. So let's start with geography first, and then we can actually go back to whether you do or do not need a trademark at all.
Yeah.
Right. So assuming you realize that, hey, trademarks are important for my business, brand is something that's going to be an asset that's worth protecting. The question is where? And I have 4 rules of thumb around this. One is you always start with your home country, right? If your business is based in the U.S., get a trademark in the U.S. If your business is based in Canada, get a trademark in Canada. That's the first echelon of defense. The second layer of protection would be countries where you make a lot of money from selling products and services under your brand. To me, the magic number is anywhere beyond 30K a year. Okay. Not a huge number, but big enough to matter. Big enough to justify the expense of going through the trademarking process. So that's the second layer of defense. So if you're US business, but you're going to be selling in Europe and Canada and Mexico, go and trademark there. If you expect to, and by the way, this is important. Don't look at your numbers today. Project your numbers 2 or 3 years from now, because By the time you get big and famous, someone will have already trademarked your brand in those countries. So you want to be the first to realize the value of your brand, right? So when I say those numbers and say, hey, you're going to be having revenue in those countries, think, is it possible for me to make 30K selling products, I don't know, in Canada or Mexico, or right? And so your question is, do I need a trademark in Angola or, Slovenia? Really boils down to, am I going to be making the money back? But right. Unless you're multi-billion-dollar company and you're just trademark everything everywhere. But I don't know how many people from multi-billion-dollar companies are actively watching this show. So let's assume they're not. The third layer of protection would be countries where you have expenses. Okay. So if you specifically target some countries with your advertising, if you have an office, if you have a branch. So to me, that number is 5K a year. Because again, that's your investment. You protect your investment. And lastly, that's optional if you make your products overseas, your physical products overseas. Here's why. This is another thing that most people don't realize. If you make your products overseas, so I'm going to give you a story around this, the true story. But basically, exporting your own products that you paid for under your brand out of the country could be infringing on someone else's brand if they trademark it first. So there was this guy who who still owns an e-bike company in the US, right? And they were making their bikes in China. Pretty common arrangement. So they found a factory in China. They paid for a massive order for them to build their bikes. The factory built the bikes. They put them in containers. They put those containers on the ship and send the email to the company owner. Hey, your bikes are about to ship. And then the captain of the ship gets a demand letter. Basically, police board the ship with a demand letter from someone else who trademarked the brand that the factory put on the bikes. And they arrested the containers because they were about to commit trademark infringement of the Chinese trademark that belonged to someone else. Oh, wow. And so the captain of the ship sends a message to the factory saying, your bikes were arrested. The factory owner sends the message to the guy in the US saying, whoops, your bikes got arrested. And the guy has no money at this point because all of it was invested in that shipment that they were expecting to get. And what do? Yeah. Like, literally, what do you do? Like, do you pay off the Chinese people who hijacked the brand? Do you just, call it a loss and start like, it's really a no-win situation. The only good solution there would have been to get on a time machine, turn on the flux capacitor and go back one day before those Chinese people file their trademark for the same thing. And, it's funny until it's not, until you're that guy in the US who was really building up his dream with those bikes, ended up with no money. So that's kind of the fourth thing. So if you make your products overseas, that would be your fourth layer of protection. Boom. That answered the question. And, if we take it one step back to whether or not you need a trademark at all. Because look, we get thousands of requests every year. And when people speak to our strategy advisors, the biggest question for a lot of them, especially when they're just starting out, is, hey, is this the right time for me to trademark my brand? Should I do it at all? Right? Am I big enough? Am I, who's going to steal my brand? And so I'm going to give you a 2-question framework that really makes it simple. The first question you ask yourself is, if everything goes according to your plan, if everything goes like exactly your dream scenario, will you still be selling products and services under that same brand 2 or 3 years from now? If the answer to that is no, like you're actually planning this to be a short-lived stint, then probably shouldn't worry about a trademark because it's a long process. Trademarking takes about 1.5 years in the US, about 4 years in Canada, slightly under 1 year in Europe. So it's not something like a domain name that you pay someone $20 and you get it, 5 minutes later. It takes time. So if by the time you get it, you don't need it anymore, what's the point?
Yeah.
Right? So that's the first thing. So if you know you're not going to be using that brand 2, 3 years from now, I would say don't bother. Second question, assuming you said, yes, I will be still using that brand, is again, assuming your dream scenario materializes and everything goes according to your best possible plan, you're making all that money that you wanted, and you're still selling those products and services. The question is the brand helping you with that success that you're seeing? And that could be multiple things. A big brand or a successful brand helps you lower the cost of your lead acquisition, the client acquisition. It increases your conversion rate from leads to sales. It makes it easier for you to attract better talent for less, because people want to work for brands that they know as opposed to brands that nobody's ever heard of. It makes it easier for you to advertise on certain platforms. Sometimes you can't even, like for TikTok, you have to have a trademark, or for Amazon brand registry, right? In order to do certain things, you have to have a trademark. So all of those things, if you don't think that the brand is going to help you at all, even in your best case scenario, then I would say go back to the drawing board right now and come up with a different brand. Because otherwise you'll be spending 2 or 3 years building a worthless brand. Why? You're still doing something. You're still spending money promoting it. You're still spending energy. Might as well come up with a brand that is strong enough for you to do something with, right? And if the answer to that is, yeah, of course, the brand is going to help, then the answer is trademark your brand today. Because by the time, like I said, by the time you're going to get big and successful, someone will have trademarked your brand already. Might as well be you.
Yeah. You mentioned TikTok. We see it a lot with different creators on TikTok who come up with certain phrases, and then other people try to register the trademark before the creator does. Right? There's a few cases going through the court system right now, but at what point, if you decide that the brand's going to be around, you're going to keep producing under it, how much do you have to have a use case for the brand and for that name? So for instance, do you have to have a logo? How much proof do you have to show that you've been using it before you register and start that process?
That's a great question. So you can file your trademark before you have a single sale. You can file your trademark before you have a single product made. And that's the beauty. That's how the big brands do it. If you look at every single successful company today, they file their trademarks now before they even make their first announcement, because that's safe. So if you think about it, the second that you come up with a brand, right, you have that light bulb in your head, like, this is going to be our name. Like, that's the brand name then, right? That second, the value of your brand is zero. The potential value could be huge, but the actual value is nothing, because you're the only one who knows, right? Nobody's heard about that brand, right? It's only here. And as time goes on, assuming you do something to promote that brand, to sell products, to get people to fall in love with your brand, the brand value goes up, right? Because again, the more people have heard of it and more people want it. At the same time, that moment of the light bulb is also the most trademarkable moment your brand will ever be. Because again, nobody's ever heard of it. There's zero risk that someone is going to hijack it from you. So if it ever was registrable, it only becomes less registrable from there, right? Uh-huh. So if you look at it, it's like an alligator, right? The value goes up, registrability goes down. And the more time passes, at some point, there will be a point when your value is big enough, but you can't have it. And that's the most painful moment, really, anyone who built that brand from nothing can have. And there's nothing you can do about it. You know, with trademarks, the funny thing with trademarks is that they're never urgent. First, they're not urgent because nobody cares. And then it's not urgent because it's already too late. And, you know, that's the thing. Really, your trademark is your investment in the future of your brand. Mm-hmm. Imagine if Apple didn't own the trademark on iPhone.
Yeah, that would.
And it's unimaginable, right? And I'm going to give you a good example. It's an example I, use a lot because I think it's so powerful. There's this scooter rental company, Bird, right? They became the fastest company that got to $1 billion valuation in 2020 something. And it took them 13 days from the time they started the company to file their first trademark.
Oh.
They didn't have any scooters. They didn't have any apps. They had nothing, right? All they had is this idea that we're going to try to build this. We're going to go to investors and collect money. And this business doesn't work unless you own the brand.
Right.
Because like, imagine if anyone could put the same bird brand on their scooters, like it breaks everything. And these guys did it like long before anything happened. And there's so many of them. Under Armour did it while he was still selling his shirts off the truck. Coca-Cola did it in 1892 when they were selling 9 drinks a day, right? I can go on with these stories for hours. But really the point is the same. Like all the brands that we look up to, they are so valuable precisely because someone had the foresight to protect them before they got to that point.
Wow. Those are a lot of really great examples. And I know there can also be trademarks for the same phrase, perhaps, but used in different industries. So when you go through that process, you're choosing where you're going to use it in terms of, if you're a podcast versus some other brand out there.
Yeah, so that's a great point. And this is really an answer to all those people who are always furious about how can you own a dictionary word?
Oh.
Like, wow, like it's unfair. But Apple, of course, being the most common dictionary word there is. And the reason Apple can own the brand Apple is because they're not selling apples. Because when you file a trademark, you have to tell the trademarks office which products and services you want to own this brand for. And you're absolutely right. So if they're different businesses, completely unrelated industries, completely separate companies can own the same brand. Best example is Delta, right? You have Delta for airlines and you have Delta for faucets.
Interesting, yeah.
And the idea behind it, the people who came up with the trademarking system, they weren't stupid, right? There's method to their madness. The idea behind it is that people who go to book their flight from Los Angeles to Dubai with Delta, they're not going to buy it from Delta because they love the faucet that's installed in their basement, right? They're not going to have any mental connection that because my faucets are so great, that's the company I'm going to use to fly from LA to Dubai. And similarly, if you have a billion miles on your Delta account, you're not going to try to redeem them to buy faucets. Right. Because again, you're smart enough to understand that it's two separate businesses. And if an average consumer can differentiate the two, then two companies can be allowed to own identical brands.
Okay, interesting. I'd love to hear a little bit about your system because from when I've talked to different lawyers who work in this field, sometimes they charge different amounts based on where they're located. So if in the US, if you hire somebody who's in the middle of the country, it might be a little less expensive than somebody in Los Angeles or in New York. But you've created a great process for people to be able to go through, see if they need the trademark in the first place, right? And then go through that whole process that you said can take quite a long time.
Yeah, well, trademarks are federal. So this system that's what you're saying, differentiates where the people are is completely unreasonable and completely unfair. And to me, it's absurd. What I did with Trademark Factory is actually I took it a step further because the thing with trademarks is that it's a multi-step process, right? The way we do it, first, we do the search to confirm whether your trademark is even trademarkable. And it's not just about searching other marks, identical marks. It's also looking for synonyms, sound-alikes, look-alikes, the translations. In the US, you translate it into Spanish. In Canada, you translate it into French and back, just to make sure that you catch as many problems as humanly possible. And you also look at other formal reasons why the trademark can be denied. Because again, why would a brand owner want to spend money? Okay, well, money is not the biggest problem. The time building a brand that at the end of the day, they're going to get a no from the trademarks office. Yeah. So to me, it's really important to help brand owners see whether or not their brand is trademarkable before they move forward. And doing that search the way we do it is the number one reason we have a 99.3% rate of success with our filings. Compare that to the industry average of 51.2.
Oh my gosh.
right? And this is the stuff that I'm most proud of. I mean, this is my Trademark Factory is my first business, right? I've made a billion mistakes on the way. I'm continuing to make mistakes as a business owner. But the one thing I'm really proud of is that the system we built provides those results.
Yeah.
Like 99.3 versus 51.2 is pretty good, if you ask me.
Yeah.
We do the search, then we file the trademark with the attorney in the US or with Canadian registered trademark agent in Canada. And then you just wait. You wait about 9 months in the US, about 3 years in Canada, and nothing happens during that time. You just wait anxiously. And then one of the two things will happen. Either the government is going to say, great, we love your trademark application. Everything is perfect about it. Congratulations. Or they're going to say there's something we don't like about your trademark application. And they only like your trademark application in about, so if it's filed through attorneys, the overall statistics is 68% of trademark applications get rejected. If you file it yourself, 81% get rejected. So if your trademark gets rejected, that's really where our real work starts, is doing all the back and forth with the trademarks office, either arguing with them or amending your application or doing this or that. And the reason I'm bringing this up is not to scare everyone with a process, but to explain that what traditional law firms do is they charge you a flat amount to file your trademark. Okay. And then they milk you for all the additional hours they'll have to spend responding to those rejections and objections that they get from the trademarks office. And that's how your $500 filing can easily become a $5,000 nightmare. Wow. Or $10,000 nightmare. We've heard of those too. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to give business owners and brand owners a place where they could know exactly how much the whole thing is going to cost no matter what. And basically take their risks and make them ours. And that's really where the whole idea of Trademark Factory's guaranteed package came to be. I said, you know what? There will be clients we're going to lose money on. There will be clients we're going to have a really, really healthy margin if everything goes through, without any issues. But to the client to the brand owner who values their brand, it's like fire insurance. You don't get upset if you buy house insurance and your house doesn't burn down. Right. But you're like, great. Right. I wish you're not, I wish it burned down, then I would have made the money. Of course not. Right. So to them, the important thing is they get their trademark registered. And what we do on our end after it gets registered is we don't just send you the PDF, which is what the trademarks office does now. We take the printed version. We actually pay out of our pocket to the trademarks office to get the printed version. We put it in a custom frame that we ordered. We put it in a shiny blue envelope and we send it to the client because we want them to have that moment. And it's really a magical moment when you hold something tangible around your brand. I've got dozens of stories from people who told me that, that was, like I said, a magical moment. They were holding this and almost crying because it was the first time they felt like they built something tangible. They built something valuable. And it was more than just, an idea that everyone laughs at them about, right? It was real. That's what made it real. And that's the moment we're going through.
Amazing. I love the fact that you also shared that you made mistakes and you continue to make mistakes, because that is part of having a business. And we all make them and we learn from them and go on. But not everybody will admit to that. So thank you for that. And I want to hear, going back to deciding that this was going to be your business, having to start the business out of necessity, learning marketing and sales and all of that. What did it take to go from inception, you have this great business, but you have no clients, to getting that first client, that second, that third, that hundredth, that thousandth?
It was just hustling, I guess.
Wow.
Really, I wrote the code for the first website. I learned PHP in the process because I didn't have any money, really. The way it worked is when I moved to Canada, I brought with me a bunch of money, which depleted by the time I finished my law school. And my assumption was I had to make the money last until I graduate because, again, in my plan, I'd be working for a Canadian law firm that's going to be paying me real money by the time I'm done. And when that didn't happen, I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I didn't want to go back to Russia with my tail behind, between my legs. I didn't want to, go on welfare. And, I had a wife and 2 kids back in the day. Still have the same wife and now 3 kids. So, but, I was like, well, what do I do? Right. And so I learned to code. I created the first automatic contract generator that was selling the trademarking services.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, like, I spent a week coding that stuff. Again, wasn't the best use of my time. Now I understand that. But the funny thing, so I finished that, and I'm like, Andrei, you're a moron. You just spent a week coding this thing to sell trademarking services to people who visit your website. You don't have any visitors to your website. You could have used the same time, just going around and looking for someone who needs your services. And as I was sitting there and punching myself in the face mentally, that's when I heard the ring. Someone bought the first trademark off the website that I built. And I'm like, maybe it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
And, and then it started happening, and, the team was growing, and then we were optimizing the team again. There's so much stuff in how you build a business. And again, now I see a lot of things I did wrong, but I'm pretty sure that, 3 years from now, I'll be laughing at some of the stupid stuff that I do today, thinking that now I'm on the right path. But to me, that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. It's the journey, and it's something that really excites me. It's something that keeps me going.
Yeah.
And money, of course, is a good part of it, but it's just a part of it, right? The bigger part of it is, like I said, hearing those stories from business owners who do something with their brands. The mission that the company has, we actually changed it a couple of days ago to we help great businesses build strong brands, right? And to me, trademarking, again, is a part of it, right? Mm-hmm. It's your responsibility as a business owner to do something out of it. We help you own it, because you can't have a strong brand if you don't own it. But the best moments I have is when I see a brand that we've trademarked, like in a store, or a van that drives by and I see it on it, and I'm like, we trademarked that, right? Or I see someone on Facebook doing a webinar, and, I haven't spoken to them in years, but I see the brand and I'm like, we did that, right? And I remember how they came to us, right, with nothing but a dream. And see where this journey takes them. That's, to me, the biggest reward.
Yeah. I love that. I love that, wanting to serve and help people, and how it really did start with your dad, but then you saw this need and it became your passion, but then you were able to grow into this thriving business. I have a little bit of a funny question. So you now live in Dubai, and you don't just have a trademark company, but you also have your own trademarks. I'm reading the drum desk, so you can do emails and you can double bass paradiddles at the same time.
That's a symbol.
Uh-huh.
I'm actually sitting behind the drum desk right now.
Oh.
So I don't know if Zoom is going to allow it, but again, it's like 11 p.m. here, so I'm not going to really drum, but I have my drumsticks here, like right next to me, right? And what it is a fully functional double bass drum kit. I have a video on YouTube. You go to YouTube, search for Andrei Dream Drum Desk, right? So it's a fully functional double bass acoustic drum kit with 3 cymbals, like one, and it has a glass surface that I can move toward me to type, and I can move away to drum. And I have my 2 monitors on a plank, so I can, like, I see you in the monitor, I have my, drum cam here, the webcam there, and that's how it works.
Wow.
So it's something I've been dreaming about for like 10 years or more. Like, I had this crazy idea, and initially the drum set was not supposed to be fully functional, right? I just thought I'd have some nice looking desk that integrated a drum kit to it. And I couldn't design it really initially. And so one day I'm like, let's try to build it. let's try to build it. Yes. And then I'm like, okay, I went to a few stores, try to measure the drum kits and this and that. And it still wasn't working for me. So what I did is I just ordered the drum kit first. I said, I'm going to put the drum kit and then I'm going to build the desk around it.
Wow.
And as it came and I assembled it and I started drumming, I loved it so much. I was having so much fun drumming the acoustic kit because I also have the electronic kit like in the same room, just feet away from me. But playing the real kit was just giving me so much happiness. I'm like, I'm going to make this drum desk so that I can still play this because I couldn't live knowing that I just made it impossible to drum. And so this design came to me and the rest is history. The funny thing is I had it built like literally 2 weeks before I had to leave Canada.
Oh,
Like I was leaving Canada to Dubai, right? And this thing is really heavy because like I'm not really good with physics. And the guy who I subcontracted wasn't either. So we weren't sure what weight you needed to put in the legs so that the thing wouldn't collapse because it has the glass here is like 50 kilograms in weight. And so for the legs, we didn't know how much weight. So they're all full iron and they're unliftable. And so I got to go. And I'm like, what do I do with a drum desk?
right.
And I said, I'm not leaving without it. And so we put it on a ship in a container and, I brought it here with me and having so much fun. I'm sure my neighbors do too.
Yeah, so you can do a little bit of work, help people, and then you can take a little break. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to incorporate some fun into our lives. So anybody who's listening can get a free consultation, correct? To find out if this is the right thing for them to do with their business or when the right time might be. Fantastic. And
so there's kind of two ways you can get value out of us. One is, as you say, you can go to trademarkfactory.com and request a free call with one of our strategy advisors. And their job really is to answer your questions to help you get started as long as you have a business, you have a brand you want to protect, and they'll walk you through that. If you are still in the early stages of trying to figure things out, I would say start with our YouTube channel. Like I've posted over 1,000 videos.
oh my gosh.
If you have a question about trademarks, I've probably answered it more than once. So go to our channel there, search for Trademark Factory. Seriously, there's a ton of content out there that is helpful and it's free. And again, if all of that makes you want to say to yourself, you know what, I'm ready to invest in the future of my brand, go to trademarkfactory.com and we'll help.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrei. And of course, I always want to ask, do you have a favorite quote, family motto, verse, mantra, words that help you continue to stay as passionate as you are, 10, 20 years ago, today, and into the future?
It changes, I always pick up quotes that I fall in love with, and then it's the next one. The one I think that was most helpful to me in 2024 is what Alex Hermosi said. He actually said it more than once, and I heard it more than once from him, but it's about the fifth time when I heard it in 2024 when the coin actually dropped. He said, if you are working hard every day and you're working super hard on your business during the weekends and your business is still not growing, you're working on the wrong things. And I think it's such a brilliant observation because oftentimes you spend months, years trying to solve a problem only to realize that really that wasn't the problem that needed solving. And that's one. And the other one is Who Not How from the book by Dan Sullivan. Great book. If you don't know how to do certain things or how to solve a problem, don't invest the time trying to figure it out on your own. Try to figure out who solved it and then get them to help you. So I guess these two would be the first that come to mind.
Yeah, fantastic. And if somebody's looking for information about trademarking, who better to help them than you and Trademark Factory?
Yep.
Thank you so much. This has been really enlightening. I've loved how much you've shared about your own story, what got you into being so passionate. And then you didn't just persevere, right? You had tenacity. You did whatever it took to realize your dream of helping people, even having to go back and repeat law school in another country. It's really amazing. And it's a true testament to the passion that you have for helping others and helping them make sure that they're protected in their businesses and that they can really fulfill their dreams. So, Andrei, thank you.
Thanks for having me. And I'm just going to end with one of my own quotes for listeners. If it's worth promoting, it's worth protecting. If you are working on getting your brand known, make sure you're the one who owns it.
Couldn't say it better. So awesome. Thank you so much for taking some time in your late evening in Dubai with me today. Thank you to everybody who's watching or listening to this episode. I'll be back again with another amazing expert. And in the meantime, don't forget to check out the YouTube channel for Trade Factory. Go to the website. Learn
Trademark
more.
Factory, not Trade Factory. Trademark Factory.
Trademark Factory, yeah. So that you can protect your IP.
Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.